Don't come to my wedding. You're no longer my family. That was the message my daughter sent me, cold, final, and transactional. She chose wealth over blood, trading a father's love for the comfort of her fiancé's affluent parents. I replied with a single word. Understood. Behind the screen, my heart cracked open from the betrayal. I made one phone call. 24 hours later, my phone was flooded, 83 missed calls from her and the Thompsons. They were panicking, desperate to undo something. But by then, it was far too late. Dad, I need $35,000 for the wedding. Emily's voice echoed through the room before she'd even slipped off her designer coat. This is the most important day of my life. I looked up from my evening newspaper, glasses halfway down my nose. She stood in the entryway, keys still jingling in one manicured hand, already pacing toward my desk. Sit, sweetheart. Let's talk this through. There's nothing to discuss, she snapped, heels tapping across the hardwood. The Thompsons already made their commitments. Venue, flowers, photographer, everything's booked. I just need you to pay your part. I folded the paper and set it aside. $35,000. Nearly a quarter of my entire retirement. Emily, I can give you $8,000, I said calmly. That's all I have to spare on my pension. Her face shifted as if I'd just insulted her. 8,000? Are you kidding? That's pathetic. I opened the desk drawer and pulled out my bank records, quietly placing them in front of her. The numbers stared back in cold black ink, after your mother's hospital bills, after the funeral. Don't you dare bring Mom into this, Emily hissed, swatting the paperwork off the table. The pages scattered, landing beside framed photos of when we still felt like a family. The Thompsons say a real father would find a way. Richard took out another mortgage. Margaret sold heirlooms. They make sacrifices. I'm not Richard Thompson. No, she snapped, voice shaking. You're not. You're happy being small. A tiny house, a tiny life, and a pension to match. I knelt to retrieve the scattered papers. A picture of my late wife stared up at me from the floor. The woman who taught Emily about grace, about family, about love. The same woman who died trusting our daughter would care for me when I needed her most. The dress alone costs more than your pathetic offer, Emily continued, standing over me. Do you know how humiliating it is to explain that my father, the man who used to be something, can't even contribute like a real dad? Just what, Emily? She faltered, but only for a second. Just a failure. That's what they say. And maybe they're right. Her words settled into the room like ash. I stayed kneeling by the table, bank statements in one hand, my wife's photo in the other. I see. My voice came out quiet, almost detached. And what do you think your mother would say, hearing this? Emily grabbed her purse. Mom would want me to be happy. She'd want me to have the wedding I deserve. Would she? But she was already heading for the door. You have 1 week. Figure it out, Dad. Because I'm not changing my mind. The door slammed behind her. Through the front window, I watched her drive off in the BMW the Thompsons gifted her. I remained on my knees, still holding Margaret's picture. Her eyes looked different now. Sad. As if even in stillness she'd heard it all. The house went quiet. Papers lay like fallen leaves around me, evidence of a modest life lived with integrity. $8,000. An hour ago, I'd thought it was generous. I stood slowly, placed Margaret's picture back on the mantel, and straightened it just right. Then I began sorting the papers again, neat, methodical, calm. $35,000. The Thompsons were right about one thing. I wasn't the kind of father who could hand over a check. But maybe it was time they learned what kind of father I actually was. The coffee had gone cold in my hand when the notification appeared. Morning light spilled through the kitchen window as I tapped my phone. Emily Martin Thompson shared a post. We'd barely spoken online since the funeral. Still, I'd kept her added, some stubborn piece of me still hoping. I clicked. Finally found real parents. Thank you, Richard and Margaret, for making dreams come true. Blessed new family. Wedding planning begins. It hit like a physical punch. Real parents. The mug slipped from my grip, clattering against the table. Beneath the post were 3 images. Emily twirling in a high-end bridal boutique, mirrors reflecting satin and lace. Margaret adjusting her veil with motherly pride. Richard standing in the background, platinum card already out. 53 comments. All gushing. You're so lucky to have them. Your new family is perfect. The Thompsons are incredible. I scrolled, reading every word. Not one mention of me. Not one nod to the man who raised her, paid for her education, sat beside her during her mother's last breath. Real parents. Then who was I all those years? My fingers shook as I took screenshots of the posts, the images, the comments. An old habit from my banking days: document everything. I opened my laptop and created a folder. Emily, evidence. The banker in me was already calculating, even while the father in me quietly broke apart. That dress in the photo? It cost more than my monthly pension. The bridal boutique looked like something out of a luxury catalog: crystal chandeliers, marble floors, polished perfection. Emily's smile beamed like sunshine, her arms wrapped around Margaret in a way I don't think she ever embraced me. But it was the 3rd image that shattered me completely. The 3 of them, Richard, Margaret, and Emily, posed like a family from a holiday card. Richard stood behind her, hand on her shoulder like a proud father. Margaret held Emily's hands gently, eyes glowing with warmth. And there in the middle, Emily looked radiant, content in a way I hadn't seen since before Margaret got sick. They looked complete. Like I had never existed. I refreshed the post. 67 comments. The likes were climbing steadily. My daughter had made a public announcement. I no longer mattered. And strangers, people who didn't even know my name, were cheering her on. The house suddenly felt smaller, tighter. Each photo on the wall, wedding pictures, baby snapshots, Christmas mornings, felt like artifacts from a life she'd erased with 1 post and 3 curated images. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Emily. Dad, did you see my post? The Thompsons wanted everyone to know how thankful I am for real support. Still waiting on your answer about the money. 2 hours passed while I reread the comments and documented everything: screenshots, names, likes. Old banking habits. Always log the evidence. The post hit 200 likes. Almost 100 comments, all singing the Thompsons' praises. Each new notification stung like a paper cut to the soul. Another text came through. Emily again. I hesitated, then opened it. Don't come to my wedding. You're not family anymore. It landed differently than the Facebook post. That was for show. This was personal. Final. Surgical. I read it once. Then twice. Then a 3rd time. 20 years. Of bedtime stories. Bike rides. Kindergarten drop-offs. College tuition. Grief counseling. Deleted. I tried to respond. Typed and erased, over and over again. Emily, please. We can work this out. Delete. How can you say that to your father? Delete. After everything I've done for you. Delete. Finally, I settled on 2 words. I understand. Send. Message delivered. Read. But no reply came. She was gone. Off planning her new life with her real parents. I stood slowly, legs unsure beneath me, and made my way to the living room. The photo albums were still where I'd left them after Margaret's funeral, bottom shelf, left side. I pulled out the oldest one. Leather-bound. Worn at the corners. Margaret in her wedding gown, me in a slightly too big rented tux. We looked impossibly young. Hopeful. I remembered what she whispered that day. Promise me you'll always protect our children. Be the kind of father they never doubt. Next page. Newborn Emily. Tiny. Fragile. Red-faced and clenched fists. There I was, in a hospital chair, terrified and amazed. Margaret used to laugh that I counted all her fingers and toes 3 times, just to be sure. Flip. Her first steps between us. Her first backpack, big as her whole body. Birthday parties I stayed up all night building sets for. Christmas mornings at 5 a.m. School plays where she'd wave at me from the stage. Graduation. College move-in day. Tears, hugs, promises. When had it changed? When had I become optional? I closed the album gently. Outside, the neighborhood pulsed with normal Saturday life, families walking dogs, checking mail, washing cars. Inside, silence. My phone didn't buzz again. Emily had made her choice. The Thompsons had won. But as I sat there, buried in nearly 3 decades of memories, something shifted inside me. The grief stayed sharp, raw. But alongside it rose something else. Cold. Focused. Familiar. The part of me that once dealt with corporate fraud, with 6-figure deception, and caught every lie. I whispered into the quiet. All right, Emily. Let's see how real your new parents truly are. Hours passed. I moved to my office, the room where I'd once handled high-stakes accounts and flagged millions in shady transfers. The desk, the air, the rhythm, it all brought me back. Sharp. Clear. Ready. I opened my old address book, the pages soft with age. There it was. Stephen Clark, Private Investigations. I'd written his number down in blue ink the day he left the bank to start his own firm. Call me if you ever need anything, he'd said with a handshake at his going-away party. His business card still sat between the pages. Professional gray, embossed in neat black font. Discreet. Trustworthy. I dialed. Stephen Clark Investigations. Stephen, it's Bob Martin. A pause. Bob? Bob Martin from First National? That's right. I leaned back in my chair. Hope I'm not calling too late. Not at all. What can I do for you? His voice was curious, a touch cautious. I need information. Full background on a couple in Spokane, Richard and Margaret Thompson. Longer pause this time. Bob, what's going on? This isn't like you. Let's just say I want to make sure I can trust some newly acquired family. Stephen's tone shifted into professional mode. Understood. What kind of scope are we talking? Everything. Financials. Assets. Business records. Legal problems. They own a restaurant, Thompson's Fine Dining downtown. He whistled low. That's a big job. I'll need about a week. For a full background scan, I usually charge $3,000. Then he paused, thinking. For you? $2,000 up front. The rest when I deliver. $2,000. A quarter of what Emily had demanded. It felt poetic. That works. What do you need from me? Full names. Any addresses? Business titles if you have them. I'll start with public records, corporate filings, tax liens, lawsuits, and build from there. Is there anything specific you want me to look for? I thought about Emily's BMW, the lavish bridal salon, and the effortless way Richard had pulled out that platinum credit card. I'm especially interested in their business dealings. I told Stephen. How they generate income, whether it's all above board. Understood? A deep dive then. Looking at cash flow patterns, supplier ties, tax compliance. Exactly. Banking jargon came naturally to me. It was like second nature. This was my wheelhouse, tracing money trails, detecting anomalies, spotting the slightest irregularities. I'll email you my contract and payment details tonight. Preliminary findings should be ready by next Friday. The full report will follow the week after. Perfect. I opened my laptop and checked my online account. The $2,000 fee barely touched my savings. And if Stephen uncovered what I suspected, it'd be worth every cent. Bob, can I ask what sparked this? You sound different. I glanced at the framed photo on my desk, Emily's high school graduation, both of us smiling. It felt like looking at strangers now. Sometimes, I said. You realize people aren't who you thought they were. And sometimes you need to know exactly who you're dealing with. Fair enough. I'll be in touch soon. The call ended. I set the phone down and opened my email, waiting for Stephen's contract to arrive. For the first time since Emily's visit yesterday, I felt something beyond pain. I felt purpose. My phone buzzed. A new message from Emily. 3 days of silence had changed things. My phone showed 83 missed calls. I'd kept a detailed record in my old banking ledger. 17 calls from Emily on day 1. 15 on day 2. 15 again today. Richard Thompson had called 23 times, his voicemails growing shorter, sharper, more demanding. Even Jason had rung 13 times, his voice increasingly uneasy as he tried to mediate a situation he clearly didn't grasp. Day 1 began with tentative hope. Emily's first voicemail arrived at 7 a.m. Dad, maybe I was too harsh yesterday. We should talk this through. Call me back when you get this. Her tone was probing, tentative, still entitled, but fractured by uncertainty. By evening, she'd called 6 more times. Day 2 brought frustration. Richard Thompson's voice boomed through my speaker while I sipped morning coffee. Mr. Martin, we need to have a grown-up conversation. This silent treatment isn't helping. Emily's upset, and frankly, so are we. 27 calls that day. I mowed the lawn while my phone vibrated relentlessly on the kitchen counter, muted but unyielding. Each buzz felt like a tiny victory. Today was different. Desperation had crept in. Emily's latest message came an hour ago while I was at the grocery store. Dad, please call me back. I want you at the wedding. I'm sorry. Really, really sorry. Maybe we all said things we didn't mean. Her voice cracked at the end. I sat at my kitchen table with my ledger open, documenting every call with the precision of a banker. Time received. Call length. Caller's emotional tone. The pattern was unmistakable. Morning calls hopeful. Afternoon calls frustrated. Evening calls desperate. What intrigued me most was how quickly they'd unraveled. 72 hours of silence, and my daughter, the one who'd branded me a failure, was now begging for my attention. The house had never been quieter. I'd read 2 entire books, organized closets, cooked meals, without interruption. My phone stayed silent, notifications piling up like snowdrifts against the windowpane. Sometimes during TV commercials, I'd count the missed calls, watching the numbers climb. Richard's calls followed a clear progression. Authoritative demands escalating to barely contained fury. His polished businessman mask was slipping with every ignored ring. Yesterday's voicemail lasted 30 seconds. We're trying to be reasonable, Martin, but this childish nonsense has to end. Jason's attempts were the saddest. Clearly coached by Emily, pressured by his in-laws, his messages grew shorter as his discomfort grew. Hi, Mr. Martin. It's Jason. Emily asked if you could please call her back. She's really worried. The spreadsheet on my laptop perfectly mapped the progression. Day 1, confusion. Day 2, frustration. Day 3, panic. Every phase documented with the same methodical care I once applied to quarterly audits. My wife's photo watched silently from the mantel. Margaret would have been fascinated by this game of psychological chess. She used to say I was too soft on Emily, too willing to give in. Sometimes, she whispered during one of Emily's teenage storms, the best response is no response at all. 3 days ago, I was the desperate one, begging Emily to reconsider, offering all I had. Now the tables had turned. They needed something from me. Recognition, forgiveness, just some sign that I still mattered in their lives. Stephen's initial report was due tomorrow, but honestly, I wondered if I even needed it. Emily was unraveling spectacularly on her own. My phone buzzed again. Emily, call number 48. This time, I almost smiled. Riverside Coffee was half empty on a quiet Tuesday afternoon, exactly what I wanted when I picked this spot. Stephen settled at a corner table away from the busy counter, his briefcase carefully placed beside him, professional as ever. Bob, I've got some very interesting findings for you. I sank into the chair opposite him, notebook open and ready. Hope it's worth the money. Stephen pulled a thick manila folder from his briefcase, stuffed with documents. Definitely worth it, Bob. They've been dodging at least $400,000 in taxes over the last 3 years. The number hung heavy between us. 400 grand. Emily's wedding budget was a rounding error compared to what her new parents were skimming. Tell me more. Richard and Margaret Thompson are running an elaborate money laundering scheme through their restaurant. Stephen slid the first document across the table. Look at this. Monthly deposits from catering services that don't actually exist. I put on my reading glasses and studied the bank statements, clean photocopies, professionally sourced. $53,000 deposited on March 3rd from Heritage Wedding Catering. Another $47,000 on February 15th from Platinum Events Catering. I called these companies. Stephen went on. Half of them don't exist. The rest never did any business with the Thompsons. My banking instincts kicked in automatically. What's their declared income versus their lifestyle? Officially, $80,000 a year from the restaurant. Unofficially. Stephen produced property records, a $2.3 million mansion bought last year, BMW payments that exceeded their declared income, expensive country club memberships. I flipped through the files methodically. Tax returns showed minimal profits, yet the bank statements revealed steady large deposits. The gap was massive, and legally damning. The restaurant's legitimate revenue barely covers its expenses, Stephen explained. Everything else comes from fake catering jobs, inflated supplier invoices, and cash payments from untraceable sources. Have you tracked the pattern? 3 years' worth of records. Watch this. Stephen spread out bank statements in chronological order, starting small, $5,000 here, $8,000 there. By last year, they were processing $60,000 a month in bogus invoices. Each page told a story my trained eye read like a map. Structured deposits designed to dodge reporting limits. Invoice dates that didn't match actual events. Client names leading to disconnected phone numbers. They're not just cheating the government, I said, connecting the dots. This sophistication means they're laundering money for others too. Exactly what I suspected. Banker's intuition, right? Stephen smiled. That's why they can afford Emily's wedding extravagance so easily. It's not their money they're spending. I set the papers down and leaned back. Emily had picked criminals over her own father. People whose generosity was built on theft and fraud. The irony was almost too sharp. How solid is this evidence? Solid enough for the IRS, state tax authorities, and probably federal investigators too. I've documented everything through legal means, public records, legitimate inquiries. Nothing that can't stand up in court. Stephen pulled out one last folder. There's more if you want. Personal banking records will take another week, but I can trace exactly how they move money between accounts. Do it. I didn't hesitate. The extra cost no longer mattered. As Stephen packed up, I made careful notes in my ledger, account numbers, dates, amounts. The same meticulous record-keeping that had built my career would now dismantle Emily's new family. Bob, can I ask what you plan to do with all this? I closed my notebook and met Stephen's eyes. Normal people, living normal lives, paying their taxes, obeying the law. Unlike the Thompsons, who bought my daughter's loyalty with stolen money. I'm going to make sure the right people see these documents. Stephen nodded, understanding the unspoken limits. He'd given me exactly what I needed. Proof that Emily's new parents were criminals. My phone buzzed again. Emily. Call number 49. This time I answered. 3 days after meeting with Stephen, the doorbell rang. I peered through the peephole. Emily stood on my porch, clutching a bouquet of white roses, my late wife's favorite. Her eyes were rimmed red, her flawless makeup smudged. She looked exactly like someone who'd spent days dialing a number that never rang back. I opened the door. Dad, I know I hurt you. But you have to understand. Weddings are stressful. Of course, sweetheart. I understand. She blinked, clearly expecting resistance. The flowers shook slightly in her hands. May I come in? I stepped aside, gesturing toward the living room. Let me put those in water for you. As I arranged the roses in Margaret's crystal vase, Emily perched on the sofa edge like a nervous bird. Her eyes flicked around the room, landing on family photos that contradicted her Facebook claim about real parents. I'll make us some tea, I said, heading to the kitchen. Dad, wait. Her voice cracked. About what I posted on Facebook, people misunderstood. When I said real parents, I didn't mean. I meant supportive. People who could help with the wedding. I filled the kettle carefully. Of course. The message I sent was harsh, too. I was angry. And the Thompsons, they were angry. They were so disappointed we were fighting. Families should stick together, I said softly. Wise advice. Emily followed me into the kitchen, hovering as I selected cups and tea bags. Earl Grey for both of us, a small shared memory between us. So, you're coming to the wedding? She asked. The Thompsons really want to get to know you better. Richard said he wants a proper, man-to-man talk. I'm sure he does. We'll see. Dad, I know asking for $35,000 was a lot, but you have to understand, this is my dream wedding. The Thompsons have been so generous, they want everything perfect. She paused, watching me pour the hot water. They're not trying to replace you. They just can do things you can't. Like what? Well, they understand the restaurant business. They know important people. They can open doors for Jason and me. She trailed off, realizing how that sounded. That I can't? That's not what I meant. But we both knew it was. I carried the tea tray into the living room, letting her follow. She sat across from me, clutching her cup like it was a lifeline. The wedding's in 6 weeks, she said softly. April 8th. The venue's gorgeous, Thompson's fine dining private event space. Richard's closing the whole restaurant just for us. How generous of him. Dad, please don't be like this. I'm trying to apologize. Trying to make things right. I took a sip, studying her face. She looked genuinely upset, genuinely remorseful. But beneath the apology was the same old entitlement, assuming her wants came first. You called me 49 times, I said finally. She blushed. I was worried. You never ignore my calls. Maybe I should have ignored them more often. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, sweetheart. Tell me about the wedding plans. Emily brightened, taking that as encouragement. The ceremony's at 4. Reception right after. About 200 guests expected. The Thompsons know a lot of people, business associates, country club friends. It's going to be beautiful. I nodded, making the right noises while she rattled off flowers, music, and menus that cost more than most people's monthly pay, all funded by tax evasion and money laundering, though she had no clue. So, you'll walk me down the aisle? She asked finally, voice small and hopeful. I set down my cup and looked at her squarely. Emily, do you remember what Mom used to say about family? She said a lot of things. She said, family isn't about who can give you the most expensive things. It's about who shows up when things get hard. Her face tightened. The Thompsons have shown up for me. Have they? Yes. They've given me everything you couldn't. Treated me like their own. Is that what you want? To be their daughter instead of mine? I want both. The words burst out raw and frustrated. Why can't I have both? I stood, collecting the empty cups. Because, sweetheart, some choices come with consequences. She followed me back to the kitchen, hovering as I rinsed the dishes. Dad, the Thompsons want to invite you for dinner tomorrow night. They want to clear the air. Start fresh. Richard thinks maybe we all got off on the wrong foot. I dried my hands slowly, weighing the idea of dinner with the Thompsons, a chance to see the criminals up close, watch how they worked, study my enemies before I took them down. "What time?" I asked. Thompson's Fine Dining was a corner building downtown, all glass and steel with valet parking. I'd driven past countless times, never imagining I'd enter as the father of a family who owned it through tax fraud. Emily waited by the hostess stand, practically vibrating with nervous energy. "Dad, you came? They're already here. Table 12, Richard's favorite spot." The dining room gleamed with polished wood and crystal, expensive art, and patrons dressed in clothes worth more than my monthly pension, a place where money whispered rather than shouted. Richard Thompson stood as we approached, extending his hand with practiced charm. "Robert, welcome to our little place." "Little place?" The restaurant probably cost more than my house. Margaret remained seated, offering her hand like a queen. "We're so glad you could join us. Emily's been worried sick about this family situation." I took the offered chair, noting its prime position with a clear view of the room. Perfect for watching how they operated. "Well, we can't have Emily worried. This is her special time." "Exactly." Richard signaled the waiter. "Nothing but the best for our girl. Wine? I have a 2018 Bordeaux that'll change your life." $200 wine? I nodded, silently calculating how many fake invoices it took to buy such casual luxury. Emily beamed as Richard ordered for the table. Margaret launched into the wedding plans, each detail more extravagant than the last. "The flowers alone are $12,000, she said casually. "But Emily deserves perfection." "She certainly does," I agreed, watching a man at the next table slide an envelope to a woman who tucked it away without a word. No receipt, no record. Classic money laundering. "Of course." Richard leaned back. "We understand your limits, fixed income, modest savings. That's why we stepped in. Emily needed real support. Real support, from criminals." "I appreciate your generosity," Richard said. "Emily's always dreamed of a beautiful life, and she'll have it." Margaret's voice held that unmistakable tone wealthy women reserve for those they deem charity cases. "We can give her things others simply can't." I sipped the costly wine, eyes drifting as staff discreetly exchanged documents at various tables. Cash changed hands, envelopes vanished into pockets. The Thompsons oversaw it all with effortless command. "Business is good," I remarked. "Outstanding," Richard replied, chest swelling with pride. "We've expanded into catering, private events. The profit margins are phenomenal." Because half of it doesn't get reported, I thought, snapping a photo of an invoice left on the table behind Richard. Heritage Wedding Catering, one of Stephen's ghost companies. Emily babbled about honeymoon plans as I gathered evidence. A wad of cash slipped into a server's apron. A businessman paid with multiple credit cards and slipped an envelope of bills across the table. "Robert," Margaret interrupted smoothly, "we want you to understand, Emily is family now. Our daughter in every way that counts. You've been very kind to her." "Kind?" Richard laughed bitterly. "We've given her a future, country club memberships, social connections, business opportunities. Things a pension could never provide." The condescension was almost suffocating. Two criminals lecturing me about providing for my daughter with stolen money. "You're right," I said quietly. "I couldn't give her what you can." Emily squeezed my hand, her face glowing with happiness. If only she knew she was celebrating with tax evaders and money launderers. Richard regaled us with business anecdotes, each revealing more illicit schemes. Phantom employees, inflated expenses, cash-paying customers buying non-existent services. "The secret," Richard winked, "is understanding cash flow, maximizing income streams while minimizing overhead." Minimizing taxes, he meant. My phone buzzed as I photographed another exchange. Probably Stephen with an update. "Emily tells me the wedding is at your private event space. Our crown jewel," Margaret said, gesturing toward the back. "Seats 300, full catering kitchen. We've hosted senators, judges, people who matter." Important people dining in a money laundering operation. I'd love to see it sometime. Absolutely. We should have you back soon, get to know each other better. More chances to observe their criminal enterprise. I'd like that very much. As dessert was served, I tallied 17 suspicious transactions. The restaurant was a financial services front, disguised as fine dining. Emily leaned against my shoulder, wine softening her mood. I'm so happy we're all family now. Family, if only she knew. Richard raised his glass. To family, new beginnings, and understanding what truly matters. I met his gaze, raising my glass in return. To getting exactly what we deserve. The week that followed unfolded in meticulous preparation. I cleared my dining room table and turned it into a command center. Stephen's investigation files were stacked neatly beside my own photographs from the restaurant, everything organized with the precision I'd once applied to quarterly audits. Stephen arrived Tuesday morning with his final report, a thick manila envelope heavy with consequences. Bob, this is enough to put them away for at least 5 years. I opened the folder, scanning through pages of documented fraud, bank statements, fake invoices, tax returns that bore no resemblance to their lifestyle. Professional. Thorough. Devastating. I don't want them in prison, Stephen. I want Emily to see the truth. He raised an eyebrow. That's not what I expected. Prison would be too private, too clean. I set down the documents. Emily chose them over me because of their money. She deserves to know where that money really comes from. Stephen packed his briefcase. Our professional relationship ends here. I walked him to the door and returned to my war room. The next 3 days blurred in careful work. I digitized every document, backing them up on 3 separate devices. Banker and me, always insisting on redundancy. If one system failed, the others would preserve the evidence. Thursday morning, I drafted my complaint to the IRS. 12 pages of detailed allegations supported by photos and financial records. I'd written similar reports during my banking career, but never with this personal satisfaction. Richard and Margaret Thompson have systematically evaded federal taxes through falsified business records and money laundering schemes. I attached evidence of over $400,000 in unreported income spanning 3 years. I printed 3 copies, sealing each in envelopes addressed to different federal agencies: the IRS, State Revenue Department, and FBI Financial Crimes Unit, a coordinated strike designed to hit them from every angle. The federal investigation would take months to unfold, but the wheels were in motion. Emily's wedding was just 5 days away. Friday evening, I put together my special gift for her, a leather portfolio containing copies of every damning document, organized chronologically to reveal a clear narrative of systematic fraud, bank statements, forged invoices, photos of the restaurant, tax filings, painting a full picture of their criminal enterprise. On the cover page, I wrote a simple note for Emily, so you can see who your real parents truly are. Love, Dad. Saturday, I visited 3 different post offices, mailing federal complaints from separate locations. Anonymous tips that would spark investigations within weeks. By the time the Thompsons caught on, their financial empire would be under federal scrutiny. Sunday morning, Emily called. Dad, I'm so excited you'll be here on Tuesday. Margaret's planning something special. She wants to give a speech about family and how grateful they are to have you as part of theirs. Margaret Thompson preaching family values while running a criminal operation, ironic to the point of perfection. That sounds wonderful, sweetheart. And Dad, I know I was awful before, but having dinner with them made me realize we can all be family together. The Thompsons really want you to feel included. I'm looking forward to it. After hanging up, I returned to my dining table. The portfolio lay waiting, poised for the right moment. Emily's wedding day would be the Thompsons' day of reckoning. I opened my laptop and drafted one final email, scheduled to send automatically in 72 hours if I didn't cancel it first. My safety net, a complete evidence summary sent to the local paper's investigative reporter. Subject line: Local restaurant owner's $1 million tax fraud scheme. Monday passed quietly. I pressed my best suit, polished my shoes, and reviewed the evidence one last time. Everything was flawless, chronological, comprehensive, indisputable. That night, as I prepared for bed, my phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "See you tomorrow, Dad. Can't wait for you to be part of our family celebration." I set the phone aside and glanced at the portfolio on my dresser. Tomorrow, Emily would learn what kind of family she had truly chosen. Tomorrow, the Thompsons would get exactly what was coming to them. The ceremony hall sparkled with white roses and crystal chandeliers, $12,000 worth of floral arrangements, more than I'd offered Emily for her entire wedding. The venue was flawless, elegant, lavish, everything the Thompsons wanted their money to buy. Emily appeared in the doorway, radiant in silk and lace. Her face brightened the moment she saw me. "Dad, you're here?" She hurried over, her dress rustling like delicate paper. Behind her, Margaret Thompson directed photographers with the confidence of someone who had paid for every detail. "I have something for you," I said, reaching into my jacket. The sealed envelope felt warm against my fingers. "A special wedding gift. Make sure you open it tonight when you have time to read it carefully." Emily took the envelope, eyes sparkling with curiosity. "What is it?" "Something important, something to help you understand your new family better." She hugged me, still clutching the envelope. "Thank you for being here, Dad. Having you accept the Thompsons means everything to me." I watched her slip the envelope into her bridal bag, nestled between her lipstick and tissues. Such a small package to hold such explosive truth. Guests began arriving. 200 people dressed in their finest, all there to witness Thompson generosity. I recognized faces from the restaurant, business contacts who had likely unknowingly taken part in money laundering. Richard Thompson appeared beside me, sharp in his designer tuxedo. "Robert, Emily looks stunning, doesn't she?" "She certainly does. We spared no expense today, only the best for our girl." He gestured to the extravagant decorations. "More than most people earn in a year, but Emily deserved nothing less than perfection. Perfection purchased with stolen money." Margaret joined us, her jewelry sparkling. "Robert, we've placed you in the third row of the family section, but we wanted everyone to have a clear view of Emily." Third row, behind the Thompson relatives and their business partners. My role as father reduced to that of honored guest. The musicians began playing. I took my assigned seat, noting how the Thompsons had designed everything to emphasize their status. They sat in the front row like royalty, basking in congratulations from guests praising their generosity. "Such a beautiful wedding," whispered the woman beside me. "The Thompsons have been so good to that girl." Emily appeared at the back of the hall, glowing with happiness. There was no traditional father-daughter walk today. Richard Thompson had taken that honor, walking beside her as the man who'd made this day possible. I watched my daughter drift down the aisle on the arm of a tax-evading criminal, her face radiant with joy. The ceremony began with elaborate readings about love and family values. Margaret dabbed her eyes with a silk handkerchief, playing the devoted mother role perfectly. Richard beamed with patriarchal pride, accepting whispered thanks from the guests. "They've been like parents to her," someone behind me murmured. "So generous." I smiled and nodded, playing my part flawlessly, the humble father, grateful for the Thompsons' kindness. Jason recited his vows with nervous sincerity. Overwhelmed by the wedding's opulence, Emily responded with tearful gratitude, thanking the Thompsons for making her dreams come true. The photographer captured every moment, the luxury, the emotion, the Thompsons' triumph. Perfect proof of their victory over the modest bank auditor who couldn't provide for his daughter. As the ceremony ended, guests stood and applauded. Rice and flower petals filled the air while the couple kissed. Emily gripped her bridal bag tightly, the sealed envelope safe inside. Margaret approached me, all smiles and warmth. "Robert, we're so happy you could be here. Emily needed her father to make this day complete. Thank you for including me. We're family now. We'd love to have you over for dinner again soon. Share more about our business, our success. You might find it educational." Educational indeed. I'd like that very much. The receiving line formed. I watched Emily accept congratulations, her hand frequently patting the bag, ensuring my gift remained secure. In 6 hours, she'd be home, opening that envelope, reading about tax evasion and money laundering, learning exactly what kind of family values her real parents stood for. The Thompsons posed for photos, arms around Emily like proud parents. Flashbulbs captured their moment of complete victory. I checked my watch. Hours of celebration remained before Emily learned the truth, but discovery was inevitable. The envelope sat in her bag like a ticking bomb, counting down to the moment everything changed. The Davenport Grand Ballroom gleamed with crystal and candlelight. Emily and Jason sat at the head table, surrounded by wedding gifts. The reception had been underway for 4 hours, dinner, toasts, dancing, every detail orchestrated perfectly by the Thompsons. From my assigned seat, I watched as Emily finally reached into her bridal bag. The sealed envelope appeared, stark white against her silk gloves. "What's this, Dad?" she called across the room, holding up my gift. "Open it, sweetheart. It's something special." She broke the seal carefully, unfolding the cover letter first. I'd written simply, "Dear daughter, meet your real parents." Emily's smile vanished as she read. Her eyes flicked to the documents beneath. Bank statements, tax returns, money laundering evidence, page after page of Thompson crimes, professionally documented. Color drained from her face. "Emily?" Jason leaned in, concerned. "What is it?" She handed him the letter, then spread the financial records across the white tablecloth. Bank accounts showing unreported income, fake catering invoices, tax returns declaring poverty while living in luxury. Margaret noticed the disturbance first. "Emily, dear, what's wrong?" Emily looked up, hands trembling with the papers. "Is this true? Are you really stealing money?" The ballroom quieted. Nearby guests turned toward the head table, sensing something was wrong. Richard Thompson stood abruptly, face reddening. "That's all lies. Your father's just jealous because we gave you what he couldn't." "Jealous?" I stood and walked toward the head table. Every eye followed me. "No, Richard. I just want my daughter to know the truth about her new parents." Margaret reached for the documents, but it was too late. Guests nearby had already seen them. Phones appeared, capturing photographs of the evidence. $400,000 in tax evasion, I announced clearly. Money laundering through fake catering services. Your wedding was paid for with stolen money, Emily. Emily stared at the papers, then at the Thompsons, then back at the proof. The flowers, the venue, every detail. All of it, I confirmed. Funded by criminal activity. Richard's face flushed purple. "You bitter old man. You're trying to ruin your own daughter's wedding." "I'm trying to save her from criminals." Whispers erupted in the ballroom. Guests pulled out phones to photograph the documents Emily held. The scandal was spreading live, witnessed by 200 people. Margaret tried to regain control. "Please, everyone, this is a misunderstanding. The IRS thinks otherwise," I interrupted. "I filed formal complaints 3 days ago. The federal investigation starts Monday." Emily dropped the documents and covered her face. "All this time, all your generosity, it was stolen money." "Emily, you have to understand," Richard began. "I understand perfectly." Her voice was hollow, broken. "You bought me with money stolen from others." The wedding photographer captured everything: the panic, Emily's breakdown, the scattered evidence on the table. Perfect documentation of their public downfall. Guests began to rise, some moving closer for a better look, others stepping back as if witnessing a crime scene. The elegant reception had turned into a scandal. Jason sat frozen, staring at his new in-laws. "My parents, they're really tax evaders and money launderers," I confirmed. "The restaurant is a front for illegal cash," I added. Margaret made one last desperate plea. "Robert, surely we can discuss this privately, like you publicly replaced me as Emily's father." I smiled coldly. "No, Margaret. This conversation happens right here, in front of everyone who witnessed your triumph. Emily looked up, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Dad, I'm so sorry. I said such terrible things to you. You were manipulated by criminals, sweetheart. You couldn't have known. Richard Thompson, the man who'd walked my daughter down the aisle, stood exposed as a common thief. Margaret, playing the loving mother, revealed as his partner in crime. The wedding guests, friends, business associates, social connections, had become witnesses to their complete downfall. Emily gathered the scattered documents. What happens now? No, I said, watching the Thompsons' faces crumble. Justice happens. The ballroom buzzed with whispered conversations, flashing phones, and reputations unraveling in real time. The envelope had been opened, the bomb detonated, and the Thompsons were finally getting what they deserved. 5 days later, Emily stood at my doorstep, tears streaming down her cheeks and her arms loaded with lavish gifts. Dad, I'm so sorry. I was a terrible daughter. She sank into the living room chair, still dressed in designer clothes, but somehow looking smaller, diminished. The diamond earrings Margaret had given her caught the afternoon light, glittering like gilt, made visible. You're my daughter, Emily, and I'll always love you. But now you see the difference between people who truly care and those who just want to use you. She nodded, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. I brought everything back, the jewelry, the clothes, the purse. I can't keep any of it, not now that I know where it came from. I watched her unpack the costly items onto my coffee table. Thousands of dollars in gifts, each one a silent bribe meant to buy her loyalty. The diamond bracelet Richard had presented with such pride. The designer handbag Margaret insisted she needed. All of it forever stained by the truth. How can you forgive me after all the things I said? Because true love isn't something you can put a price on, and that's something the Thompsons will never understand. Emily picked up a family photo from the mantel, her mother holding her as a baby. I wish Mom were here. She would have seen right through them, wouldn't she? Your mother always said the most expensive gifts come with the highest cost. The IRS came to their restaurant yesterday, Emily said softly. They shut it down, took boxes of records. Richard tried calling me, but I couldn't. I just couldn't talk to them. I nodded. The federal investigation I'd set in motion was moving faster than I expected. Good. Now they'll face justice through the proper channels. That's how it should be. Emily set the photo down and looked me in the eye. You could have just told me they were criminals. Why wait? Why let me go through with the wedding? Would you have believed me without proof? Or would you have thought your bitter father was just trying to ruin your happiness? She was silent for a long moment. I would have chosen them. Even if you told me the truth, I would have chosen them, for their money. She sighed deeply. Now I finally understand why you always said the most important things can't be bought. We spent the afternoon paging through old photo albums, pictures of Emily's childhood, family vacations on modest budgets, birthday parties in our small backyard. None of it glamorous, but all of it real. I want a proper blessing, Emily said as we closed the last album. Just us. Maybe a few real friends. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, just honest. I'd like that. Jason's devastated about his parents. He never suspected anything. We're thinking of moving away from Spokane, starting fresh somewhere else. That sounds wise. Emily gathered the expensive gifts, carefully placing them into shopping bags. I'll donate these to charity. Someone should get some good out of them. Your mother would be proud of that. As she prepared to leave, Emily hugged me tightly. I'm sorry it took criminals and a federal investigation for me to see what I already had. The important thing is that I understand now. Will you walk me down the aisle at the real ceremony? I'd be honored. After she left, I sat in my living room surrounded by family photos and memories. The expensive gifts were gone, replaced by something far more valuable. My daughter's love and respect, honestly earned this time. My phone rang. Stephen Clark. Bob, you've been watching the news? Some of it. Thompson's fine dining is finished. The IRS found enough evidence to prosecute for tax evasion, money laundering, and fraud. Richard and Margaret are looking at serious prison time. Good. The local paper wants to interview you. Hero father exposes criminal in-laws, saves daughter. Interested? I glanced at Margaret's photo on the mantel, then at the family album scattered across the coffee table. No, Stephen. Some victories don't need the spotlight. I hung up and returned to my photo albums. In a few weeks, Emily would have her honest wedding blessing. Simple, modest, real. Everything the Thompsons' extravaganza was not. Outside, spring was turning to summer in Spokane, the season of fresh starts. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. Thank you for loving me enough to tell me the truth, even when it hurt. I smiled and set the phone aside. Justice had been served. My daughter was safe. And sometimes that's all that matters. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To listen to the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for watching.